Welcome to BeFM Drama. This is part 2 in a 5-part adaptation of The Adventure of the Speckled Band, a classic Sherlock Holmes mystery. Here we rejoin Holmes and Dr. Watson as they listen to the story of Helen Stoner, the stepdaughter of an eccentric doctor who is the sole heir to a noble but financially destitute English family. Please join us as Helen Stoner tells the tale of her sister's mysterious death here on BeFM Drama.
Miss Stoner, you say that the death of your sister brings you before us today. Pray, relate your story. Dr. Watson and I are all ears. Spare no detail, as each point is essential.
Helen Stoner sighed and seemed to steady herself. Then she began to speak.
My sister died 2 years ago. You can understand that living alone with our stepfather in Stoke Moran, we were unlikely to meet anyone our own age. We did have an aunt, however, Miss Honoria Westphale, who lives near Harrow, and occasionally we were allowed to make short visits to her house. It was there that Julia, my dear twin sister Julia, met a young major of Marines. Within the time of our visit, they became engaged. Our stepfather, Dr. Roylott, gave no objection to the marriage when we returned to Stoke Moran, and yet, within 2 weeks of Julia's marriage, the terrible events occurred which I must now relate.
Be precise now. Tell us every detail.
It is easy to do so. Every second of that dreadful night is seared into my memory. Stoke Moran is, as I have already said, very old. Only one section of the building is habitable, and the rest semi-ruined. The livable part of the house consists primarily of 3 bedrooms on the ground floor, along with Dr. Roylott's sitting room and the kitchens. The 3 bedrooms are all in line, together on the ground floor, sharing the same corridor. The first bedroom is Dr. Roylott's, the middle one my sister's, and the third my own. Do I make myself clear?
Perfectly so.
The windows of the 3 bedrooms open onto the lawn. On that fatal night, Dr. Roylott had gone to his room early, but we knew he was not asleep because my sister complained about the smell of his strong Indian cigars. The smell drove her out of her room, and she came into mine, where we sat and chatted about her approaching wedding. At 11, she got up to leave me, but stopped at the door and looked back.
Did she say anything to you?
She asked if I had ever heard a whistle in the dead of the night.
A whistle?
Yes. I told her I never had, and she even asked if I might possibly whistle in my sleep. I remember I laughed at her for that. I can't even whistle awake. Julia did not share my amusement.
Try to tell us what she said to you word for word.
She said, during the last few nights, at about 3 in the morning, I've heard a low, clear whistle. I'm a light sleeper, and it wakes me, but I cannot tell where it comes from. Maybe the next room, maybe perhaps the lawn. I just wanted to ask if you had heard it too.
What did you say to her?
I told her it was probably our stepfather's awful transient friends out on the lawn. She nodded in agreement. That's very likely, she said. But if the sound is coming from the lawn, I'm surprised you do not hear it as well. Well, it is of no great importance. She smiled at me and went out. A few moments later, I heard the lock click in her door.
Did you always lock yourselves in at night?
Absolutely. I think I mentioned that the doctor keeps a cheetah and a baboon. We had no feelings of security unless our doors were locked.
Quite so. Continue your statement.
I could not sleep that night, sitting up with a vague feeling of unease. My sister and I were twins, and we often felt that we could sense what the other was feeling. It was a wild night, wind howling, rain beating down. Suddenly, bursting from the roar of the gale, there was a wild, terrified scream. I knew it was my sister's voice. I leapt from bed and rushed into the corridor. As I opened my door, I thought I heard a soft, low whistle and a clanging sound as of 2 pieces of metal banging together. As I reached Julia's door, it swung open slowly on its hinges, and by the light of the corridor lamp, I saw my sister appear, her face twisted and swollen, hands groping for help, swaying to and fro like a drunk. I threw my arms around her, but her knees gave way and she fell on top of me, moaning and convulsing horribly in her arms and legs. At first, I thought she had not recognized me, but she wheezed out in a voice I'll never forget. "Oh my God, Helen, it was the band, the Speckled Band." She tried to say something more, but the convulsion seized her and her voice became a gurgle. Then our stepfather was beside us. He pulled Julia away from me and poured brandy down her throat, then sent for medical aid from the village. But his efforts were in vain. In the violence of her convulsions, she lost consciousness and never woke again. Such was the awful death of my beloved sister.
Are you sure about this whistle and metallic sound? Could you swear to it?
Indeed, I did so, to the coroner. It was a strong impression, but with all the crashing from the gale and the creaking of that ancient house, it's possible I may have misheard.
Was Julia dressed?
No, she was in her nightdress. She had the charred stump of a match, and the matchbox was in her room.
Meaning that she had struck a match and looked around when the thing happened. That is important. And what conclusions did the coroner come to?
He investigated with great care, for Dr. Roylott had a terrible reputation in the village. But he was unable to find any cause of death. Julia's door had been locked on the inside, and the windows were blocked by iron bars. The walls were found to be quite solid, and the floor as well. Even the chimney was barred. It is certain my sister was alone when she met her end. Besides, there were no marks of violence.
How about poison?
The examination was inconclusive, but common poisons were ruled out.
And how do you believe your sister died?
It is my belief that she died of pure terror and shock. Though what terrified her, I can't imagine.
Were there transients on the property at the time?
Yes, there nearly always are.
And what do you make of that expression, the Speckled Band?
Sometimes I think it was merely delirium. But then, it may have meant some band of people. Perhaps the transients. Many wear spotted handkerchiefs around their heads.
Holmes shook his head like a man who is far from being satisfied.
Ah, these are very deep waters. Go on.
2 years have passed since that night, and my life has been lonelier than ever. A month ago, however, a dear friend did me the honor to ask my hand in marriage. His name is Percy Armitage from Reading. Dr. Roylott has approved the match, and we will be married in the spring. But 2 days ago, some repairs were begun on the wall of my bedroom, and I've had to move to the room next door.
To your sister's old room?
Yes. And now I sleep in the very bed in which she slept. Imagine then the thrill of terror I felt last night as I lay awake thinking on her awful fate, when I suddenly heard in the silence of the night a long, low whistle. I jumped up and lit a lamp, but I could see nothing in the room. I was too terrified to go back to sleep. So as soon as it was light, I slipped out, hired a dog cart at the inn, and rode to the station, catching the first train to London and arriving here this morning to ask your advice.
And you have done wisely, very wisely. But have you told all?
Yes, all.
You have not. You are covering for your stepfather, Dr. Roylott.
What do you mean?
For answer, Holmes reached out and pushed back the sleeve of Helen's dress, showing 5 vivid little bruises, the marks of 4 fingers and a thumb printed on her white flesh. You have been cruelly abused, madam. Helen flushed red and quickly covered her injured arm.
He is a rough man, hardly knows his own strength.
There was a long silence, during which Holmes stared into the crackling fire.
This is deep. There are 1,000 things I must know before I take action, and there's little time. If we were to come to Stoke Moran today, would it be possible for us to look at these rooms without your stepfather knowing?
Dr. Roylott told me he'd be in town today, and our housekeeper is old and foolish. I could get her out of the way for an hour or 2.
Excellent. Coming, Watson?
Of course.
Wonderful.
I shall return by the 12 o'clock train and prepare for your arrival.
And you may expect us early in the afternoon. Now, I have some small business matters to attend to. Will you have breakfast?
No, I must go. Thank you. I feel lighter having spoken all of this.
She dropped the thick black veil over her face and glided from the room.
What do you think, Watson?
It seems a dark business, Holmes. If she is correct and the floor and the walls were strong and the doors and windows were locked, her sister must have been alone when it happened.
And what of these nocturnal whistles and the very odd words of the dying woman?
I cannot think.
When you combine the whistles, the friendly transients, and the fact that the doctor may have had an interest in preventing his stepdaughter's marriage, it seems a good start.
But what, then, could these transients have done to kill her?
I have no idea, which is why we're going to go there today.
What will Holmes and Watson find once they arrive at Stoke Moran? Find out tomorrow here on BeFM Drama when we rejoin our heroes for Part 3 of the adventure of the Speckled Band. From the BeFM studio here in Busan, I'm your host, Joshua Cornwell.